Hello and welcome to the Agri-Food Pioneers. We're here to give a voice to companies in the agriculture and food industries that are making a real difference to the environment. And today I'm joined by Chris Edwards, Chief Executive Officer at Menu Fresh, who specializes in supplying fresh food to restaurants, pubs and more. They specialize in minimizing food miles and maximizing simplicity for their customers. Welcome, Chris, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I've heard a lot about Menu Fresh, and I wanted to have you on because I can see how what you do there could grow and be used in bigger organizations and even in whole counties, that could help consolidate their delivery systems. So can we start by you just telling us a bit about your business? When and why did you decide to start Menu Fresh?
Right. Well, so Menu Fresh was born out of a company called IDC. IDC was started in 1995, not by me. I was far too young, even if I don't look it. But it was started in 1995, and the raison d'etre behind it was that it could supply local food suppliers with nationalized contracts. So take those national contracts and spread them across local supply. It was a great idea. And it was working fantastically until COVID hit, where there was a significant drop in the amount of local supply. But for me, in 2018, when I acquired IDC, the driver was actually around the hospitality consultancy I'd done over the previous 10, 15 years had really shone a light for me on an industry that required a disruptor. It required an amount of change. We had fantastic supply chains. We had fantastic produce, amazing produce being produced in this country, but the supply chains were antiquated and the management of those supply chains were antiquated. You had a very small number of large players who had built by acquisition, which had led to a very inefficient model. And with IDC, when I acquired it, it was really about, this is the opportunity to really drive some change and to solve a lot of the problems that I've been coming across in the consultancy. Where we've moved to now with Menu Fresh and changing IDC to Menu Fresh is we now have our own fleet of vehicles, but we've created a hub and spoke model where we have central distribution centers which bring the produce into single points, and then it's the last mile delivery out of that. And it's really been about making that model as efficient as possible, which we have the benefit of because we've started from scratch. We've had the benefit of being able to make that an efficient model from word go.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see that. So you have hubs, as far as I understand it, and you get produce delivered to those hubs, and then you then in one van or lorry, you then make a shorter journey delivery to your customer, the restaurant or pub, with everything that they would want in that truck. Is that right?
That's right. But I mean, more than that, for us, what it was the realization of is that so we supply every category to our customers, excluding frozen. And that meant that when we were using the local supply model, that we had 5, possibly 6 vans 3 times a week turning up at our customer sites doing delivery. With the way that we've now moved that into one and then done the last mile in a single van, first of all, we've been able to use smaller vans, which means it's more efficient. So we're using 3.5 ton versus 7.5 or 18 ton even. And it also means that we're able to do one delivery. So for every 6 vans that we were having going to a customer, that's now one single van. So all of a sudden, you've then taken 5 vans off of the road. To me, that's a huge win.
Huge win. I mean, I had a business in Bath for 10 years, and just the amount of deliveries, and they were trying to get a system like this set up, and it would have transformed. Bath's a Georgian city that wasn't built for being a World Heritage Site that it is now, and the roads are very small, and there's delivery coming all day, every day. And if you could have just consolidated those deliveries, and it would have been fantastic for the environment, for traffic, for the city, you know, it would have made such a huge difference. So I just think it's a brilliant idea, and I'm glad it's working well for you. So I'm guessing that is your mission, to simplify and to improve the current status quo. Is that it, or do you have more to
Yeah,
your
I
mission
mean,
at Menu Fresh?
so yeah, so broadly, yes. I mean, I think our mission comes down to sort of to two sides. One is about bringing efficiency and technology into a marketplace, which is, as I say, throughout my consultancy days, was very much a we've always done it this way type of marketplace. However, it's also about bringing a level of understanding to the market as well, and supporting. We have a very interesting sector where you have the guys at the very end, so our chefs and the end customer, who are becoming far more educated on things such as seasonality, food miles, also the cost, and I don't mean the financial cost, I mean the environmental cost of certain product lines, and I think that credit where credit's due. For once, and I never thought I'd be saying this, but for once, the biggest environmental challenger is probably Jeremy Clarkson. The line which gets repeated back to
Yeah,
me
right.
quite a lot is, I know, I was as shocked as anybody. We've got a man who's probably put more CO2 into the atmosphere than a country, who's now
Yeah,
turning around and sort of saying, well, if you buy an avocado, that's the equivalent of running 2 Volkswagen Polos.
that
But
was
it's
insane.
true. And I think that for me, one of the things that you asked me earlier about, what was the driver to do this? And I think that one thing that's always stuck in my mind is I had a consultancy client, a very large national client, and I sat down with the guy that was running the food and beverage side of it in one of their restaurants. And they had sites up and down the country, hundreds of sites. And we were sat having lunch, and there was this sort of cardboard thing that sat on the table, which said, the food here is locally sourced within 40 miles. And I said, that's actually very dishonest. And he said, no, it's not at all. He said, all of our suppliers to this site are within 40 miles. He said, in fact, actually, the meat from here comes from 5 miles away. And I was eating I think a steak at the time, and I said, there is no way that this came from 10 miles away. So just because your supplier is 10 miles away, this steak has traveled 3,500 miles to get to my plate. Whereas actually we are surrounded by fields and, and frankly,
Yeah.
beef cattle sitting in there. And it's really about, I think one of our key aims is to try and bring the market around to the idea of the difference between locally sourced and locally supplied. So locally sourced is where it's a case of the farm down the road, and where we're sitting right now in Bedford, we're literally surrounded by fantastic farms producing fantastic produce, which comes into here to then be distributed out.
Mm.
And the same is true of our site in Stoke, where, again, it's surrounded by beautiful farmland. But it's understanding that that's locally sourced. Locally supplied simply means that the supplier is 10 miles down the road, but the meat that's coming into that supplier has traveled from Argentina, from South Africa, etc., in order to get there. And it's part of what we're trying to do. We're working really closely with customers on is, the understanding that be a bit more adaptable with your menus, be a bit more open to the challenge. You've got talented chefs desperate to kind of work with this as well, but it's getting those hospitality owners to buy into that as well, to understand that a strawberry that costs half as much as a British strawberry, it's true, but it's also probably been dry frozen, it's probably been taken across the Atlantic, it's probably been in a container for several months, whereas actually the British produce, accepting the fact that a strawberry in the middle of summer is going to be really big and juicy, but when it comes to sort of the closing days of autumn, it's going to be really small, or spring really, it's going to be really small, but still packed with flavour, and so much more flavour, that it's worth spending that little bit more for the benefits it brings. And the benefits it brings to the end customer is that story of locally sourced. But it's also for the business owner, it's about increasing their GP through that story while supporting British agriculture, which is working very, very hard, but is also struggling.
Mm. Yeah, I can totally see that. So I think it's pretty clear how this ideology makes a difference to the planet. It's food miles. Is there is there anything else that you can think that you're doing that apart from the food miles that might be a benefit to the environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's also around, first of all, as I say, it's that seasonality piece. It's understanding that if you're buying bell peppers in the middle of summer, that's fantastic. You know, stick them in every salad you can find, because there are producers in the UK that produce fantastic fruit. Okay, but it's in the middle of winter, switch out to something else. It's switch out to the winter veg that we produce. It's trying to keep it as local as possible. That ultimately makes far more of a difference than anything else. If we are having to import bell peppers for our customers in November, it means that we're shipping them from Peru or the very south of Spain. But even, you know, as the year goes on, those shipping routes get further and further and further away as we chase the sun and chase the harvest. That's a major part. The other part is the technology side. So we've invested very, very heavily in the technology that's here, and we've created systems that can forecast using AI what our customers are going to be buying, when they're going to be buying, what peaks and troughs there are. And through that, we're able to then order far more in advance. Now, as we put more effort into that, and if our, you know, competitors and partners in the industry can also start taking on that kind of view, which a lot of them are, then it means that we can start to go back to those source suppliers, the farmers, with this is what we're going to be needing, this is what the market's going to be requiring. That makes the efficiency of those farms far greater. And it means that we're not having, you know, lorries, ships, and aircraft going all over the place full of produce, which actually we could have bought out of the ground here. And I think that's really important to helping the environment as well. If you think about it, if you're having to ship meat from Argentina, then, you know, which, yes, is going to be a bit cheaper. However, the environmental impact of that is vast, absolutely vast. You know, a container ship coming across the ocean is going to put an awful lot more into the sea and into the air than, you know, a 40-ton lorry coming from, well, actually, interestingly, down by Bath up to Bedford.
Yeah, absolutely, couldn't agree more. So the message there is just keep an eye on the packaging and ask your butcher if you're buying from a butcher. Just find out where this meat is coming from and just give it some thought. I think there's not very many people that are actually thinking about this stuff. You just put whatever the recipe says into your trolley or basket and then off you go. But if we actually pause for a second and just check, oh, maybe I can substitute that for something else that is more local, and it just tastes better. It tastes better because it's from this country and it hasn't traveled around the world, and it's fresher and it's better for the planet. Couldn't agree with that more. So then I understand your sort of next step and something you're looking into is electric vehicles. Obviously, transport is a big part of your business. How do you see that playing out?
So we would love to go electric right now. We really would. And interestingly, our company car fleet is all electric, apart from 2, which are still hybrid. However, with the van side of things, there's 2 major challenges which need to be overcome. One is infrastructure. So about 60% of our deliveries, because we do 2 runs, so we'll have a van that goes out, does the shorts, comes back, gets replenished. And we've done that so that we limit the number of vans that are on the road as well. But with that, if we had the infrastructure for fast charging, super fast charging, that comes with vans, then we could certainly switch those out. The next is the infrastructure around hybrid, at least HGVs, which are coming through on the market. So we've actually done quite a lot of following of Arrival, and we're quite excited about what they're going to be bringing to the market, because for us, that could be a huge game changer. And it's a game changer in a number of ways. One, obviously, with fuel costs going the way they are, it means that we can save money in our transport and logistics, which means we can pass that across to the customer, because that helps to overcome one of the major issues. You know, we can't ignore the fact that you might have a business owner, especially in somewhere like care, where the costs are quite fixed, who says, you know, I'd love to go seasonal. I would love to buy locally produced products. But the reality is I've got margins that have to be maintained. If we can make that switch across to renewable electric from fossil fuel, then all of a sudden we can save them the money and help the planet at the same time. So I think that's something we're really keen on following. But at this point in time, the issue is the infrastructure is just not there, and anything that can be moved forward to accelerate that is really interesting to us. Interestingly, just down the road from us, at one of our sites, we've got Europe's largest fast charging station opening up.
Really?
And yeah, it's just outside of Bourton on the Water, and it's really exciting. Hopefully, it should be open next year. Now, interestingly, when you look at that, that could mean that our vans coming back can have a 10-minute stop and be 95% charged. Now, for
Jesus.
us, what that means, and in sort of 10 minutes, well, that means our driver can take the break, and it means that our van can be recharged. That means that all of a sudden, that's what was that, 220 sites that we can then deliver to on pure electric only. That to me
Wow.
is incredibly exciting. That
Yeah,
that
yeah,
that
yeah.
really sort of gets the juices going. Um,
Absolutely.
and likewise here in our site in Bedford, which is our central distribution unit, we've got the panels on the roof everywhere. We've got the wind generator outside. As soon as we can get some electric vehicles in here that can actually start doing the distances we need, if we can find places where they can be topped up very rapidly, then all of a sudden our model works. At the moment, the issue we've got is that charging time means that if I've got to get to 480 from this site care homes and schools all before 11 o'clock in the morning, that's a real limiting factor. We've overcome that as best we can in the short term by making sure that all the vans we've bought are brand spanking new. They're all Euro 7, we're as lean as we can be. But that, for me, that's the most exciting part coming up. That's the bit that's going to be the real game changer.
Yeah. And the fact you're excited about it and can't wait for it to happen, all you're really doing is waiting for the technology to catch up. But you got the vision, that's for sure. I wish local councils and the like would share that vision. So how do you feel like bigger organizations, like I was talking about earlier, could actually have a similar system that you're operating, where instead of having like 100 deliveries into a city center a day, I just think it would make so much more sense if all the deliveries could come in on like 10 vehicles, and they could then get distributed. It could be all powered electrically, and I just think we could be a lot more organized in the way we do deliveries. Can you see a future like that, like I can, or am I just talking nonsense?
I don't think you're talking nonsense. I think that the struggle we have is it comes down to the organization of local authorities, and I think it would have to happen at the local level. I don't think this is something that could kind of happen across authorities, but we as a food supplier, we would have limited issues with being able to deliver to a hub that's at, so for example, where we're sitting right now, Bedford. Reason why we chose Bedford, it's quite a forward-looking town. It's we met with the mayor only a couple of weeks ago. He came to our launch event, and really great conversations along similar lines. But I think the issue is when you have so many variables in the food supply chain going into a local authority, it's how do we start to bring those together, and who takes charge of it? So that could happen at an authority governed level quite rapidly and quite quickly if you were to have and also without necessarily being a detriment to competitiveness. My fear is always, because one of the issues I had when I first started out was how do you get onto the council list when you're not a multi-billion-pound company? We don't have to sacrifice that for that to happen. If you took Bedfordshire or Bedford, the town, just as a starter, you could have a hub that operated on the outskirts of Bedford, which had all those little local producers and local suppliers coming into it, that then supplied. Even if you just started with the council buildings, there are 4, I think, around Bedford that all have, staff feeding, etc. in there. You've then got the large hospital, the small healthcare units that hang off of the side of that. All of those are controlled by local authority, and all of them could be brought onto a fantastic scheme where that happened, which would be a great test bed, which could then be spread across the country. I think it's a really exciting concept. I fear that that, and speaking as myself, and also I would imagine for a lot of my competitors, there would be a nervousness around, well, hold on a minute, are we dropping things into a place here where, I've got
What do
my
you
direct
mean,
competitor
giving
sitting next to me?
control away to a local council? Why would that make you nervous?
you know but I think that could be overcome, and I think that
Mm,
if you were to engage with the local chambers of commerce and the local government, I think that there would be the willingness. My skepticism doesn't come into the to the concept. My skepticism comes into the ability of local government to be able to initiate something like that. And
yeah.
I don't think that it'd be done on a commercial level at this point. Certainly, I don't think that Bidfood, for example, are going to welcome me rocking up to their door saying, "Hey guys, why don't you just drop your stuff off at our distribution centre? We'll deliver it in our vans," which say menu
Oh,
fresh
go
along
on,
the side. And
Chris.
I don't blame them for that either.
Chris, I think you should do that. I like that idea a lot. Okay, we're running out of time now. Is there anything that our viewers can do now to sort of help you on your mission, help you on your way, make you be more sustainable, make you disrupt this industry even more than you already are doing?
So I think it comes down to when you're choosing where you're going to go and have your evening meal, when you're going to go out and enjoy a meal, look for the pubs, look for the restaurants, look for the ones that really engage with real local, and that's locally sourced. Make sure that the products on their menu, have a look at seasonality. It's not very difficult to do. You can do it when you do your weekly shop. When
Mm.
you're going around the supermarket, just look at where the origin. Every single product that you can buy has the origin of that product written on it. Just take a look at that and see, oh, that's interesting. Last week, those potatoes I was getting from the UK, but this week they seem to be from Spain. Well, that's because the season for baby potatoes has passed us. So, let's go have a go look at, do you know what? We did fancy those little Jersey Royals, but actually, let's have a nice bit of mash instead. And it's kind of doing that will help educate yourself in where products are coming, what the seasonalities are. There's loads of great resources online. We produce our own market report, for example, which says this product's now coming away from the UK, it's moving to Spain, moving to Peru, moving to wherever. But it's about having that level of education, which doesn't take long, and it's actually really interesting when you get into it. And then selecting where you're going to eat out based on that as well, and having open conversations with pub landlords as well. It kind of, it would be great if you did move to a seasonal menu. Do you realize the impact that can have? Landlords are open to it. They just need to know that the customers are there to go and buy it before they make the jump.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I want more information on menus as well. Just tell me where stuff's come from. Everything. I want to know it all. Thank you so much for joining us, Chris. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Okay, thanks for watching, everyone. So subscribe now and click the bell so you're notified when we speak to more pioneers of the agri-food industry that are leading the way to a sustainable, low carbon and regenerative future. Thanks for watching. Are you an agri-food pioneer? Get in touch now to arrange your interview.